Today's video is all about Bio, your gateway drug to decentralized science. Today we're going to be doing a deep dive into this project, looking into some of the fundamentals such as the team, the tokenomics, the ecosystem, and the overall value proposition, trying to figure out whether this project has what it takes to make it to our portfolio. So you know what? Let's talk about the news, let's analyze the charts, and let's strategize to capitalize. Welcome to the channel. My name is Mike, and let's get right into it, guys. If you're new to the channel, welcome. On the channel, we talk about cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and all the altcoins, looking for opportunity. And the question is Bio the opportunity? Guys, we're going to be doing some research today, looking into this team, the tokenomics, the overall value proposition. We want to make sure that this project has what it takes to earn our capital. Essentially, we want to get bullish here, and we have to be looking at all the little details, and hopefully the team has provided all the details required in order for us to be informed, because information is definitely going to empower us with that knowledge to make some critical decisions here in this market, especially as it heats up. And we're going to be using the website as our main platform to navigate the project. And as per usual, I'm going to be taking a retail perspective. Ultimately what we want to see is the retailers come into the space, get all the information they want and need in order to get bullish. And of course, the retail perspective is essentially the one that creates that mass adoption perspective. So we'll definitely be taking that approach and that lens. And let's begin. Let's see what's going on here with this website. Your gateway drug to decentralized science, very, very interesting. The Bio protocol is a DeSci new financial layer engineered to commercialize the best science faster. Very interesting statement here. It does pretty clearly define what it is. Obviously, it is a decentralized protocol dedicated to science, essentially. And it obviously is a lot more than that. So obviously it's going to be difficult to encompass everything that it is in one sentence, but it does a pretty good job. Let's continue going down here. We see some logos. Are they clickable? Not really. So we don't know much about what these logos are. I see Hair DAO. I see Vita DAO. We'll talk about that one in a bit. And I see many other DAOs. All right. So Cerebrum DAO and DAOs it is, right? So I'm assuming here what they're doing is listing the DAOs that they deployed. And we'll talk about the value proposition, and then you'll make sense of why this is the case, right? Because really, Bio in itself is a launch pad for DAOs, okay? So let's continue going forward. Driving biotech innovation through decentralized funding and coordination. So Bio Protocol lets anyone fund, develop, and govern tokenized scientific IP, so intellectual property, from universities, companies, and researchers worldwide. So it gives one the ability to raise capital in a decentralized way. Okay, so to be able to raise capital for whatever scientific objective a team may have. So, which is pretty cool. Ultimately, being able to raise capital in this fashion allows the team to think and behave and conduct research freely with obviously with that decentralized objective. A protocol for directing capital and talent to the most promising early stage science. Meta governance, guys, this is a term that we definitely have to be aware of and be clear about. Govern a wide range of biotech DAOs and IP assets, enabling broad exposure to the DeSci space. So what does that actually mean? So their approach is, that they hold tokens, governance tokens, across the DeSci space. Right. So because they're a DAO in themselves, and in addition, they help deploy DAOs within the narrative, they also hold tokens within those DAOs that they deploy, which means that if you're a holder of the Bio token, essentially your governance token, which is also Bio, allows you to have exposure to all the other DAOs that exist within their ecosystem. So again, govern a wide range of biotech DAOs and IP assets, enabling broad exposure to DeSci science space. So, and essentially, if you're a bio holder, you essentially have exposure to all the other DAOs that are deployed through bio. So, which is quite interesting. Funding, drive funding and specific scientific mission or individual IP assets. We're going to talk about that further. Liquidity, create liquid on and off ramps that are globally accessible and allow seamless exchange across bio ecosystem. So again, we're going to have to understand that this is essentially a platform that allows teams, scientific-based teams, to create a DAO and raise capital. That's basically what it is. That's their value proposition. And what's interesting is that their base case, Vita DAO, was an in-house project. We'll talk about that in a second, of course. Explore the bio ecosystem, Vita DAO, funding and supporting early stage longevity research. Interesting. And you notice that those logos above, they correspond very nicely with what we see right here. Athena DAO, Psi DAO, and many others. So you can see that there's various biology-based objectives here. The hair DAO, for those individuals losing their hair, they got a DAO here that are trying to raise research, obviously raise capital so they can deploy it into a some of their research regarding hair loss and so on and so forth. So there's a lot happening here within the ecosystem. Now, what I do appreciate is this whole objective of decentralizing the influence over how individuals raise money within the science space. So you have to think about it. If it becomes a very centralized space, the funder is the one that has a lot of control, right? In this case, if you're decentralized and you're getting funding across many funders in a decentralized way, it allows the team to retain control over how they conduct their research. And for me, that's very important because it becomes an unbiased way of conducting research, right? So there's no influential individual, that has that pressure because they are whales within the space. So very interesting way and approach of decentralizing research within this space. Pretty good idea. I like it. Building with the best, you can see there's some other things here. Top crypto and biotech players are backing the project. Okay, sure. We got North Pond Ventures and some others. Nice backings right there. And we'll talk about the backings and the relationships that I find most important. Obviously, there's a lot of them, but I find a few others that might be quite more interesting for me as an investor. And to be honest, an early investor within the narrative altogether, because this narrative is quite new and hasn't caught many bids yet, so we're quite early. A history of accelerating on-chain science. Okay, so this is this is what they call their roadmap. And because the roadmap, for the most part, is been achieved, you can see that we're leading into the end of the roadmap. My problem with this is you are here means that we're at the end of the road, almost here. So you can see the Q3 2025 Scientific AI Agent Launchpad, which again is a nice interesting implementation to the utility of the bio token, and we're going to talk about this for sure. But what I want to focus on is this roadmap that is coming to the end of the road, which means that it's hard for us to speculate, or it's hard for us to keep up with what the team is doing in the next little while without knowing their next steps. Now, there's a few next steps. Like I said, the AI Agent Launchpad, that's a big one. And bio brings hundreds of new research communities and biotech assets on chain. Of course, those IPs and more teams and more DAOs and so on. Obviously, that's going to be a given objective. But what other little details do they have other than the AI agents launchpads going into 2026 and so on? Now, I like the fact that they give the quarterly objectives, and I would maintain that. I would continue with that. But we need a bit more here, guys, because we're getting to the end of the road here in 2025. And without any future objectives, it means that we're kind of stagnant here with our speculation going forward. Okay, so keep that in mind. Overall, the roadmap is here. I'm glad to see that they hit many of all their milestones so far. and achieved everything on time and no issues there. But where are we going next? That's the idea. Latest updates here. We see a bit of a few blog posts. Their blogs are not bad. They're keeping them up to date, which is good. You guys know that I'm a big believer that if you're going to engage in an outlet, social media outlet, including blogs or mediums, at least keep it up to date and keep using it. Don't make it look like it's stagnant or basically abandoned. And I'm glad to see, July 3rd was their last one, and June 18th, June 2nd. So it's not bad. So let's see if they keep it up. And I know in the last little while it's been very difficult to keep up the social presence, regardless if it's X or even blogs or whatever the case. But it's still necessary in order to keep the pulse moving here. The team, fully docs team, I appreciate that significantly. Fully doxed, and that for me, lets us also speculate not only on the tech but also on who's implementing the tech and who's leading the tech, the talent behind the team. And we're going to talk about the team. I did get on their LinkedIn accounts. We'll kind of touch upon some of the team, and that I was able to kind of like dig a little deeper and see exactly where the team comes from, because in fact it spells out a lot better of an understanding of this whole structure behind bio, because there is another structure behind bio. And we'll talk about that, of course, as we go through the team in a second. So I'm kind of just scraping to the website. I do have a lot more information for you guys regarding some of these individuals. Guys, I'll just say this. It's a young team. I can see it's a young team. There's some talent here with regards to Web3 and so on, and blockchain and so on. Marketing is definitely here. And of course, the agentic EIR. We're talking about AI agents and an ecosystem and marketing. This is all great stuff, 100%. But again, we'll talk about this a little bit further with some of the relationships that they may have with other tiers of this project or ecosystem. Let's put it that way. And we got some advisors, interesting stuff, research, AI research, operations, tech, IP tokens, and so on. So there's a team here, guys. They may not have a strong history within the space, but they're definitely talented. So that's great. Let's move on forward. Join the bio ecosystem. That's that. Explore bio DAOs. Bio has DAOs, and we have to understand this. Bio produces DAOs. It launches DAOs. So Bio Launchpad makes Bio DAO curation, formation, and funding accessible, open, and fun. So essentially, you can create DAOs with Bio, and Bio itself is a DAO. So we have to make sure that we can kind of make sense of this. Govern bio. Join the community. Lots of good stuff here. The Telegram. We'll talk about their socials. Again, many projects have been struggling with socials, and this is not exclusive just to bio. The struggle is real across the space, but we're definitely seeing things heat up as we see the market heat up, which is great. Again, the bottom of the website is well established. We got lots of links, lots of details. Socials are here. They got their X, their Telegram, and their Discord. And I would like to say that they have established community platforms, meaning Telegram is a well-established platform, and so is Discord. But again, there's not that much action, and it's not exclusive to bio. Okay, so keep that in mind. All right, guys, that concludes the website. Pretty good, and I got some tabs open for you already, such as some of the documentation. So let's dive into that real quick. And I was looking into some of this, obviously, and trying to get an understanding. The overall overview, you can see that there are things based on its utility and its value proposition by breaking down traditional biotech barriers. So its value proposition is meant to basically create a non-traditional approach to raising capital, and for me and for this space, for the crypto space, Web3, that's exactly what we want to see, is utility and a value proposition that embraces that decentralization within Web3. So that's pretty much it. Bio is a new financial layer for funding and developing early stage biotech. So if you see a team that is doing something really interesting and they want to, issue tokens in order to raise capital, essentially, if that team, creates something amazing and reaches milestones and benchmarks and objectives, you get rewarded, guys. You get rewarded for being a token holder and an early, let's say, investor within the team and helping that team raise capital. Okay, so enabling global communities of researchers and crypto users to create user-owned research networks, and that's basically it. So pretty good stuff there, very clear. We got decentralized science. We can see that there's some information here. If you want to know the traditional space in comparison with the decentralized space and its use cases. Again, funding, publishing, data storage, IP ownership and development, replication and reproducibility, organizational design. There's a lot of good things here, and if you're into this and you really want to know exactly what the objective here is with decentralized science, you could definitely do a whole deep dive just on some of the concepts with regarding science and its traditional forms. But really, how does decentralized science evolve into something different, right? So we look at bioprotocol, for example. This is the protocol, and you can see bioprotocol is designed to make biotech more open, efficient, and market driven, from early stage funding to liquidity, milestone based incentives. Again, if these teams hit milestones, you're going to get rewarded. In the agentic automation, the AI agent automation. This is their next phase. I think they're in. This is what they're focusing right now within their roadmap. So I'm quite interested in seeing how this develops and progresses in the next little while. Protocol goals, curation, acceleration of new bio DAOs. They want to make more of them, of course, get more out there. Perpetual funding and liquidity for bio DAOs so being able to create that liquidity. And the frameworks, so standardization of these frameworks and tokenomics and data product suites. So they basically want to make a very easy way to generate these DAOs for teams, because the team's core competency is science, basically, and what they want is it to be easy for these teams to come out and raise capital without having much background within the crypto space, or even in not being software engineers or anything like that, to have to deploy a DAO. And this is that simplicity that they want to achieve. So core operations, curating, funding, liquidity, incentives, so lots of stuff happening here. And these are some of the DAOs: the operations, rapid research funding, no gatekeeping, liquid IP, and lots of cool stuff here, guys. Capital efficiency. Again, they give you lots of information. Now, I'm going to stop here a second. So, VitaDAO is an interesting thing, because the creators behind Bio, the developers behind Bio, are also the developers behind VitaDAO. And it's because they wanted to use VitaDAO as an example of how bio could be used. Okay, so funded 8 million in longevity science, backed by Pfizer Ventures, partnered with Newcastle University. So VitaDAO is one of their it's in-house implementation. And then you can see that there's many others here, guys, that is already an example of the DAOs within the bio network. Okay, so cool stuff here for that information. Let's see, and the bio agents is the next step. So what they're trying to do is create a bunch of agents within a marketplace, and these agents are not necessarily going to be ones that are going to be on social media like the ones that we've seen already being deployed. It's not like that, and it's not like they're going to have their own token or anything. The agents themselves are going to be working for the DAO, and the agents are going to be intelligent enough to read papers and do many other DAO-like exercises to keep the DAO active and running appropriately. So bio agents are AI-driven scientific researchers that automate tasks for bio DAOs. So they're basically agents that are going to work for these DAOs, such as data analysis, hypothesis generation, experiment design, or IP claims. So they're going to have jobs and abilities, things that they can do, but actual utility that has value. It's not like it's going to be a bot spamming on X, or it's going to be a bot that's going to be, following a wallet necessarily. and trading with the wallet or anything like that we've seen already in the past. BioDAOs leverage these autonomous lab assistants. That's basically what they're going to be doing, research and doing their thing to help the DAOs within their as an assistant to speed up and reduce the cost of scientific process while reading and writing to a decentralized knowledge graph, basically integrated across BioDAOs. So you can see how the value proposition now, even from an AI agent perspective, is definitely expanding here. We thought AI agents were going to be one way, and now slowly we're seeing AI agents being deployed in different utility and in use case that is directly involved with the utility of bio. So that for me is really interesting. And the fact that it's not associated with a token is even better, because we saw the AI agents that had their own tokens, their own liquidity associated to it. This is not the case. This agent is completely free of liquidity, in the sense that it's free to go and actually work for the DAO. I appreciate that. That for me is quite interesting. And now you have something else that they got going on. And remember, this is all part of their, let's say, ecosystem. They have their AI agents, their marketplace. Now they have their IP tokens, intellectual property tokens, pioneered by Molecule. Guys, I want to touch base on what Molecule is all about, because that is, in essence, was the organization behind the release of Bio itself. Okay, so we're gonna have to talk about what Molecule is in a second, once we get into some of the team members and where they come from, and and so on. Let's see what else we got here. So these tokens give holders opportunities to participate directly in development, decision making, and future direction of the research. So, if you're an IP token holder, you're able to get involved as within the governance, and that's very typical with governance tokens. BioDAOs develop and acquire ownership in IP tokens. So not only do they have tokens within the DAO, but they also have IP tokens that they acquire. Each BioDAO typically holds a portfolio of IP tokens representing intellectual property related to the BioDAO specific area of research. This is interesting because they're kind of separating the DAO itself from, it as an organization, and also tokenizing their intellectual property as it develops. So there's like multi-tiered or multi-SKUs. There's multiple SKUs here. So you have the DAOs and the IPs of the DAOs, essentially. Quite interesting, guys. These guys are literally putting this token to use. Bio has a lot of utility based on all these ideas, and it makes sense, right? Because there's one thing to raise liquidity via a DAO, but then what about all the output that comes out of the team, right? It's intellectual property, and that also can be tokenized. Interesting. So again, I'm not getting into all of this little detail because this deep dive will be hours and hours long, but you can see how the IPTs work. If you want to read into it, I think it's great. There's no guarantees of returns or anything like that, but obviously if things hit, their milestones hit, there's going to be rewards for milestones being hit for those token holders, right? That own IPT tokens. So good stuff here. The Bio Protocol V1, the Launchpad, they got a lot of things happening with regards to this, but I think they've moved on quite a bit from this within their funding liquidity engine. This is something else that we got to understand that is a big part of their ecosystem. So once the BioDAO successfully completes its funding process, we have this liquidity engine that basically it controls, or it manages the liquidity across trading pairs. Okay, so very interesting, no doubt. Let's see what else I got here for you guys. Let's see. So yeah, the Bio protocol is also able to supplement liquidity, provide Bio token holders to vote to do so. And something that I really do want to touch base on is, I want to go back a second because it just came to my memory, came to my mind. I think it was right into here, the Bio protocol, right into here. Let's see if I can find that. No, it's not. Operation, the DAOs itself, right here. So we have to understand that these DAOs are individual teams, right? That came from the Bio DAO. Now, what we have to understand is they are separate identities. And what happens within these DAOs don't necessarily represent, the sentiment behind bio itself. So for example, long COVID labs, right? Apparently there's a little bit of an issue happening with long COVID labs. Now again, I'm not going to get into the FUD, I'm not going to get into all of that. I highly recommend that you go look into it. But just because long COVID labs was deployed on bio DAO and bio help them deploy doesn't mean that they are completely, or they are responsible for long COVID labs. It's like saying the Ethereum Foundation is responsible for whatever Ethereum token gets listed on Ethereum. Some similar scenario. Just because they help them launch it, or they or incubate it, or whatever the case is, it's not necessarily their responsibility after the fact, right? So we have to understand there's a certain level of connection that they may have because, of course, they're listed on the launchpad, on BioDAO's launchpad. But after they're launched, they have individual teams and individual objectives. They have different marketing. They have different everything. And it's very important that we separate them once they get launched. So long COVID right now is in a very interesting state because there's a few people that are not very happy with their marketing and communications at the current moment. So I definitely would keep up with that. I do want to keep my eyes and ears open with what's happening with that issue. But that's something that I felt like it was necessary to bring up here on this deep dive. So let's continue going on forward. And we're going to talk about a lot of these little things because their ecosystem, like I mentioned, is quite established, right? They got a lot of thing going. Like I mentioned before, the liquidity engine. So once you get those DAOs going, you have this liquidity engine that is primarily focus is to manage that liquidity, like I mentioned. So let me just right here. Let me see what I got for you here. Let's see. So the liquidity engine. And then we also have the reward structure. So to ensure accountability, Bio V1 enables milestone-based incentives in the form of bio tokens. So remember I told you that essentially if those DAOs meet certain milestones and intellectual property for their intellectual property and products, don't you think that token holders should have a little bit of a reward? So rewards aligned everyone's incentive toward real world progress, keeping the focus on meaningful scientific outcomes. So it would make sense that a token holder gets rewards for the outcomes that they are backing and they are interested in putting their money where their mouth is. So essentially, the milestones are on chain, verified, and community approved. So a very decentralized way to manage those milestones. And the liquidity engines, Bio Protocol creates and manages liquidity between Bio and Bio DAO tokens. And that is also a very autonomous thing, and it's part of their ecosystem. So their ecosystem has a lot of various parts that are autonomous. And again, back to the agents, an autonomous way of basically having an assistant, essentially. Like I mentioned, bioagents are a leap beyond static predictions, harnessing a user-run decentralized agentic system built on ELISA frameworks, an AI agent language learning model, if you guys know what that is, utilizing new software for running the agents either at home or on the cloud. So it's up to you how you're going to run them and so on. And you can see there's lots of information here on what they're going to end up doing. And if you keep it simple, and you keep it very broad, it's just going to be an assistant for the DAO, like I mentioned before. So pretty good stuff here. And now finally, the bio token. I appreciate the transparency because you can see they have tokens on Ethereum, they have liquidity on Base, they have liquidity on Solana, and then they get it right into, and they give you the token addresses and all of that, and the bridges and all of this good stuff. So lots of transparency there. And then the utility of the token. I would say that there's a lot of utility. Bio token may be used to select which DAOs to onboard in the network. So again, curation of the DAOs, and that's all voted on. If you're a bio token holder, you vote on which DAOs actually get deployed, which is cool. Provide liquidity to the network, obviously very very straightforward. Vote on bio protocol upgrades and bio token issuance. So this is something that we have to understand, is that the tokenomics could change in the future, based on governance, based on the DAO. If the DAO one day has a proposal that says, you know what, we want to issue a burning mechanism or this or that, tokenomics will change. And it's very hard to keep track of tokenomics in this case, because you never know, in a few months they could change. And then running the bio agent. So the bio utility is packed, lots of good stuff there. There's an incentive to hold the token if you are in this within this narrative and you like the bio project. And then the bio provides holders with access to governance rights, obviously whitelist and bio funding rounds, early bio DAO token allocation, rewards for contributing to bio DAO's clinical trial participation, new health products and developed by bio DAOs. I'm interested in the last two, what those really mean. I'm actually going to get physical products or something like that. I don't know, but you never know. Okay, so tokenomics, bionomics, I think that's their play on words. What I would just like to say is this, again, is a lot of this is based on the current state, because the DAO will definitely be able to change these metrics over time. And it's a democratic way of governing the tokens and how they get distributed and so on, the tokenomics. So it started off with a supply at about 3.3 billion tokens. The supply is uncapped, meaning a new bio DAOs can be minted for future protocol or network growth. And that, we've seen many projects that have this capability. Again, the DAO is very powerful, has a lot of capabilities of changing different things. This requires deploying a new token contract. This is where things get a little bit vague, but obviously this is a way that it can be done. This requires deploying of a new token contract to replace the current DAO token. And then you can see the current initial supply. Now there's a 3-year objective here. In my opinion, and not only my opinion, but the way they frame it is in the 3-year time span. Within the next little while, we're going to see a simplified version. And I like the simplified version because it kind of gives you the idea of what's really happening now. And we can see that the community holds, or the tokens that are going to be allocated to community incentives are much more than the internal. And I appreciate this, guys. If you've been watching my deep dives and noticed that I kind of do this myself, every deep dive, I look at early stakeholder allocation. That's what I call the internal, what they call the internal early stakeholder allocation. And you can see that 44%, is allocated to these individuals. So we see core contributors, we see investors, we can see advisors, right? These are individuals that are early, which means that they're going to be your competition when it becomes to sell pressure, right? They're going to be looking for exit liquidity early because they got in early. They're going to be in heavy profits early. And because it is a new project, expect that in a bear market, lots of individuals will be taking profit. Okay, so now that we're here, you have to understand that the sell pressure at the top of the cycles will be very heavy, and we'll see deep retracements across the market, not just on bio, but many new projects for this cycle. We'll see deep retracements, okay, because of this. And it's not exclusive to bio, but at least we know that their motivation right now is to basically make the community comfortable, because look at the token allocation. Now, over the next little while, you'll see, and they do have a clear vesting schedule and a release schedule, and they have, the percentages very, very nicely. You can look into this in a lot more detail. You can see that after a while, the unlocks ramp up significantly. This is normal, guys. This is definitely something that we've seen. This is why early projects get a lot of heat in their first cycle, because again, this is where the most of the token distribution happens, which is it's front loaded, and because it's front loaded, the first years are very lucrative. You can see that the distribution within the first three years essentially goes from being very heavy in community, and then slowly goes towards internal, and that's normal. And in a way, I appreciate it, because at the beginning they're trying to keep the community safe, and over time letting go, and obviously internally, meaning the team needs to get paid, early investors need to get paid. And this is how the cookie crumbles, guys. This is how it works. Essentially, people that take risk earlier on, eventually they need to get a return on their investment. But at least what they're trying to do here is early on, again, year one, is to allow the community to be a little bit safer than normal, right? Because we've seen a lot of sell pressure in other projects really early. So you can see Molecule, we'll talk about Molecule. They do have an allocation ecosystem, and the community. Lots of community airdrop, community everywhere, and internal represents very, very little within the first year, which is healthy. And you can see they have a very clear vesting schedule, how they're going to be allocated if there's a unlock, and again, all the vesting of the cliff, the 1 year for investors, 1 year, 4 year vesting, 1 year, 6 year vesting for advisors. These advisors are going to get their tokens over 6 year period. So you're not really worrying about too much dilution within the first year, obviously, because there's a cliff. But then even after that, it's only, number one, it's only 4%, right? But still 6 years vested. That's a long time. And it's healthy for the community that way, not to have to worry about being to have too much dilution over time. So tokenomics are actually pretty good given that they're in the early phases. It's not too bad. And remember, 3.3 billion tokens were issued at the beginning, which is not bad also, because that puts it at currently approximately 45% of the current circulating supply, of the total supply being in circulation, which is not bad either, again, for an early project. Okay, so pretty good stuff here, guys. We got lots of good information. Again, I would highly recommend that you dig deep into this document. I try to highlight some of the important things as best as I could in this deep dive. This deep dive could be hours long, but I'm going to try my best to keep it simplified. And as you can see, the release of tokens are ramping up, with many of the categories currently being beginning. These two, meaning the investors and the advisors, getting their tokens, again, the 6 year vesting schedule. We got the community auction almost done, and that's about it, guys. So you can see they're well into it in their timeline. Okay, so let's move on from there. Let's jump into some of the narrative and the socials. So we got to understand this is a new narrative, as I mentioned earlier. And we're seeing a couple major players out there. Number one being, CZ talking about bio and talking about how bio could be implemented. And then in addition to that, we're seeing very interesting cooperations, let's put it that way, collaborations, right? So we've seen bio and research labs, or research hub, essentially do a collaboration, which is the next big player within this space that is backed by Brian Armstrong, the CEO of Coinbase. So we're seeing CZ and Brian basically yap about this narrative, and we see CZ here with gathering with a bunch of DeSci entrepreneurs organized by labs, and you can see who's there in the background. We got Vitalik there, and a bunch of heavyweights within the space, which is interesting, which means that this narrative is still very quiet, but definitely buzzing behind the scenes. Now, are we really early here? Very possible that we're super early. It's very possible that maybe nothing happens with this narrative, but the narrative, the DeSci narrative, right now, there's not that much capital flowing into it yet. Is very early, and I think that it has a very interesting value proposition, basically, to provide decentralization for the medical, scientific, and even educational field, right? So very important opportunity here, in my opinion. And we see their socials. They got a lot going on here. And just recently, this one right here, we got Follow the White Rabbit. You can think of a new bio agents. Again, these agents are coming out, and this is their next phase that they're pushing within their ecosystem, which is great. And as you keep on going, you see a few other key things happening here. Bio protocol checking in at base, which is obviously Coinbase and base and all of that is very, very good. And then we see another implementation with base and more base. And what I found most is this bio protocol and research hub collab. and them being on base and all of this. And Research Hub, like I mentioned, is basically on the base chain, and it is backed by Brian. So this is a good scenario to see both heavyweights working together within a very interesting narrative. So again, speculation at its peak and at its best. Let's move on forward. Part of their socials, you can see that we got the blog. By the way, their X. Well, let's see their social engagement here. What they got going on. Almost 100,000 followers. That's cool. Engagement is tough in this space, but given that, 100 likes, 13 retweets, 100 likes, 8 likes, 100 likes, you can see that. It's not bad. It could be a little bit better, obviously, but we can't critique right now. There's not much buzz. Slowly, we are picking it up. To be honest, the last few weeks have been great in this space. So let's see if we can maintain the energy within the space. The bio blog. Okay, pretty cool. This is what I was talking about before. They're keeping it somewhat up to date. It's not bad. We got a few in the last few months. June, July. We're a little bit. They're due for another one. If one or two a month is not bad, so they're due for another one. They don't want to make this die out. They want to make it look like it's active. And then they got this thing. The forecaster. It looks like it's dead in the water. I don't think they're even using it. I would suggest that if they're not going to use it, that they do not have it. Just dismantle it, delist it, or whatever the case may be, because it looks unmanned and it doesn't look cool. But nonetheless, they got one, and they got a couple followers here. And let's get right into the team. What's going on with the team? They got approximately, let's see, 20 associated members here on LinkedIn. There could be more. Obviously, I'm expecting more, to be honest. But they got 20 here on LinkedIn. And we got the Bio Protocol co-founder right here. Pretty interesting. Full-time right now. MTX co-founder. So he's got some other, let's say, they definitely founded some other projects. But what's more interesting to me is the molecule, is this right here, and we're gonna see some repetition throughout this space. And and about the team and being involved with molecule, and then we'll touch base on what molecule really is. Okay, so you can see that there's a lot of connections here, but still this individual seems to be very, very young, even within his career. So co-founder of MTX Studio, recreates specialized software solutions utilizing cutting-edge AI and blockchain technology. So pretty good stuff. But 4 years into the space, still very young, hot new ideas, very aggressive. I appreciate that. That's what we want. We want the aggressive individuals trying to make major changes in this space and major changes for his reputation and career. So that's pretty good. And then we got this head of growth of Bio. Okay, some more talent here. Head of growth of banker, full time. It seems a financial asset manager institution. So some sort of financial senior product marketing manager, and that's about it. Okay, so not bad. A little bit, a little bit of experience, but definitely the marketing communications dude right here. And if we keep on going forward, Paul, I think this is the founder and CEO at Molecule and Bio. Okay, so you can see again, Molecule AG. He's master in command. He's the face of the project, in my opinion. I could be wrong, but what's more important here is this: the molecule and the founding of Avita DAO. Okay, so molecule essentially, is one of the layers of where Bio come from, and so is Vita DAO, which is important because that was one of the DAOs that was deployed off of Bio. And the question is, why was Bio created? Well, Bio was created by Molecule just to see if this decentralized approach can be achieved. And one of their projects as an example was Vita DAO. Okay, so this is an interesting, let's say, a map of where Bio comes from. and what's bio's utility in essence. Okay, pretty good stuff. So you can see the dude really does have a background here, bachelor's degree of economics and in international affairs, and then Princeton University of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency technologies, computer science. So he does have a background within the space. He has been digging into this space, doing all of this kind of stuff. So I think he's a fairly qualified individual right now. And of course, he's leading the project. So why not? Now, if we talk about what's going on here with Molecule, a decentralized biotech protocol, porting intellectual property into Web3 and launching biotech DAOs. So you can see where this Molecule kind of comes from, right? And bio being that project that came from Molecule. Pretty interesting stuff. Okay, so I would, if you're more interested and you want more of those details, go check it out. But pretty cool to see how bio actually came about. Pretty good stuff. All right, guys, that sums it up. Let's take a look at the overall summary. So that, as you guys know, I released these infographics. I'm gonna put them on the socials, guys, for you guys. You can download them on X, on the Discord, and all the other socials. Let's kind of do a quick summary of its ecosystem. So it, its ecosystem is well established. It's got a lot going on, and to be honest, given that it's towards the end of its roadmap, I would like to know more of where it's going with things. But generally speaking, what it has right now, there's tons of stuff happening. Bio DAOs, the launchpad, the liquidity engine, milestone rewards. And again, this is all autonomous application. This is why it's part of its ecosystem. It's done autonomously, right? So meta governance system, again, all the tokens that they hold within the foundation and the governance ultimately allow bio token holders to have exposure to many different DAOs, which is pretty cool. Bio agents AI, where they are right now. So another ecosystem implementation, 10 out of 10, guys. Crazy stuff. They got a lot going on. 10 out of 10 utility curation of the bio DAO. So that's where you're going to use the bio tokens, right? You need those tokens to create the DAO. For meta governance, if you want to be part of the meta governance, you definitely need to be holding tokens. Milestone based rewards. Okay, so in this case, this is how you're going to get rewarded based on those DAOs hit in those IPs hitting milestones. Right. Once you hit the milestone, you'll get rewarded in bio tokens, liquidity engine, protocol governance, and all the other reward structures that exist. Guys, 10 out of 10 right there. Lots happening here based on ecosystem, its utility, and so on. Its roadmap, I now that I think about it, it hit a lot of its milestones already on its roadmap. The only issue that I have is the past is the past, but I'm more interested in the future. So project objectives are, are shared throughout the blog post and socials, which are great. End of 2025, AI agents, launchpad, and expansion of BioDAO's IP token and marketplace. This is something that we expect, but I would want more. I want more details out of the roadmap. And because they've done such a good job, I'm going to say we got to continue pushing that we want that clarity going forward. What's happening in 2026? What do they have in mind? At least giving us an idea of what's going on forward. And I'm going to tell you this, it's very typical of a DAO in itself to have very vague roadmaps. So in a way, I kind of give them credit for providing such a very clear roadmap in the past, but I want something more forward. Maybe I was a bit too harsh with the 6. Let's see. Team, CEO and founder has the business and the blockchain background, for sure. Good stuff. Other team members have some experience within the Web3 space, and it's a relatively young team. Okay, so definitely a team that is ready to hustle. I appreciate that they're young and ready to go, but ultimately that's part of the speculation. When you're young, you don't have so much of a track record, but still, they, CEO and co-founder and founders are great. So I think that they got a lot of good strength there. Their socials, unfortunately, this is how it goes. Low engagement is expected. They have 100,000 followers on X. Discord and Telegram are well designed, however, low engagement. Blog could use a bit more work and more action there, because there's a lot to talk about within this narrative. This narrative is so young that they should be willing to have a lot of more, let's say, maybe papers or educational pieces, because that educating individuals is a great way to onboard individuals, right? So maybe using that a little bit more. But generally speaking, guys, the fact is that there's not much action on their socials. And that's unfortunate, but I'm hoping to see that change very, very quickly. 8 out of 10 for tokenomics. I think their tokenomics is one of the better tokenomics that I've seen out of a new project, leaning towards community much more than their internal stakeholders, and that for me is huge. Right, as you guys know, I've seen many weird tokenomics in the past, and this one is very, very fair. And again, it's not a fair launch, but it's fair, especially understanding that the team needs to eventually get, and all the early investors need to get some rewards for investing, early and taking that risk. And again, emission focuses on community for the first 3 years, which is healthy, a great stuff. But we're early, guys. So there's still a lot of tokens that need to get released. And this is why I give it 8 out of 10. It's just the nature of the game. No matter how good their vesting schedule is, it doesn't matter. We're still very early within their emissions. So there is going to be dilution every so often. And again, during a bear market, guys, people are going to be taking profits. So this is not a multi-cycle hold necessarily. If it is, you got to be able to endure a big correction in a bear market. This is my opinion. Again, not financial advice, guys. Relationships, 9 out of 10. We got Woo Innovation Hub to scale the project and launch BioDAOs quickly. Binance Labs, again, I talked about CZ in his vision for DeSci, and this is where it comes for full circle. The relationship with Binance Labs is epic. It is being part of that program, that incubator program, and knowing that CZ is interested in this narrative, and he's said much about it in the past, and giving financial and technical support is very useful. Okay, and this is interesting, and especially that we see that research hub and that whole collaboration. I think that's great. Okay, so new DAO is another one, joint incubation of other projects and DAOs. I give this thing 9 out of 10 with regards to relationships. So good stuff there. And exchanges, tons of liquidity all over exchanges, just no Coinbase at the moment. You never know. It may never. Sometimes that happens. But so far, all we're waiting is Coinbase. And everywhere else, it's pretty much listed. So good stuff there overall, guys. We see the trading volume is healthy, 31% trading volume, which is a lot, which is good. Smaller cap, right? It's not a huge cap. It's only $100 million market cap, more or less. Its price has been a little bit doing pretty good in the last little while since the market has been climbing. So again, don't hold me to this number. It's been a bit volatile in the last little while, but the supply is about 48% of the total is in circulation, which means that we got another, let's say, 50% of the tokens yet to be issued. So there is a form of dilution still within a bio to expect. Okay, so my overall verdict, we see it's part of the DeSci narrative. AI agents are definitely coming around that corner. Bio went live on January 3rd, 2025. Liquidity provided. Okay, so that's that. The community tokens could change over time, but only through governance via the DAO. Just understand that. In this case, the tokenomics are not carved in stone necessarily. There is an ecosystem fund supporting the development of IP and AI research, which is great because, again, as a DAO and having an ecosystem that supports the development of all of this is great. We want ecosystem growth. Ecosystem growth is going to give the token better and more utility. And this is something that I stand by through and through. Okay, so meta governance, bio protocol treasury holds bio DAO tokens, allowing bio holders to guide multiple DAO ecosystems collectively. So meta governance in this case is essentially bio protocol treasury holding all tokens of other bio DAO DAOs launched on bio DAO. And that indirectly gives you exposure to this governance of those other DAOs, which is pretty. It's like a basket of of DAOs. It's interesting stuff here, guys. CZ has expressed interest in the DeSci narrative in the past, again, being part of that hub, the Binance incubator program there, which is great. Research hub collaboration is also super interesting. New narrative that has not attracted much capital yet and is still in speculation. However, guys, this is where, perhaps the opportunity is. You want to get a bit early. Doesn't mean that you got to get all in and go all in, but ultimately, getting into a speculative narrative with opportunity for the upside is where you could potentially maximize your return on your investment, given that risk is there. We have to understand that, but reward is also there. Okay, it goes both ways. Roadmap needs an update and more info. I think it'd be peaked out there. I want to know more where they're trying to get with the DAO. And DAOs typically don't have roadmap clarity, so that's typical within the narrative within the space. CEO founded by Vita DAO. So this is very important to understand that the CEO of Bio also founded Vita DAO. Bio Protocol was incubated and launched by Molecule. Molecule launched Bio Protocol to generalize the Vita DAO. Okay, so just understand this model and enable scalable DAO based funding for biotech. This is a very clear, layered approach to creating this ecosystem. So very interesting. This is something that when I was doing my research, it was actually like, okay, this is pretty cool. They're actually they found a value proposition, its core utility. They found a software solution. They found everything and established a layered ecosystem. Interesting. Bio is not a separate company. It is a protocol layer created by Molecule team to enable community-led biotech funding at scale. Very, very cool. Okay, so I like this. Now let's talk about price predictions and all of this projections and all of this, guys. I want to be very clear. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know where this is going. Okay, but what I can tell you this is that even if Bio hits a $1 billion market cap, and it's at 100 million right now, and we know that altcoin seasons can be very aggressive, but if this becomes the first mover and it obtains the first mover advantage, not only within the narrative, but also within the whole crypto space, a $1 billion evaluation is nothing. Okay. And it's very, very possible. And at that point, it starts to hit about 55 cents. It does an 8x. That's still very healthy. But I also feel it could exceed expectations given this first mover advantage and the FOMO that could definitely spike during the moments of euphoric price action, and really realizing that as a first mover there isn't much competition. Guys, a lot of the capital will get attracted to the first top few projects, which at the end of the day Bio's part of. So for me, it hitting a potential $1 is very possible. Hitting maybe a 15x, maybe even a 20x is very possible. But modestly speaking, guys, I would be looking at a 10 to 15x, seeing what happens around that level and tracking the market day by day. Again, I don't have a crystal ball, guys. I can tell you the future, but I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. Again, I give this project at an 8 out of 10, maybe a little bit higher. Maybe I was a bit rough on some of the topics, but reality is this project is very, very interesting and it has a lot of potential going forward. All right, guys, I know you're here to talk about charts as well, so let's do that. Let's see what's going on with some of this price action, because in the last little while we have been seeing a lot of good moves to the upside within the space, and the question is Bio in a sustainable move and it can finally make some higher highs? Let's take a look at this in a little bit more detail. Ultimately, what I see here is a nice rounded bottom, guys. And you guys know I appreciate those rounded bottoms. We got a nice V recovery here on the daily. Beautiful V recovery, hit the resistance. And we've talked about this. We've tracked Bio for a good while. You guys know I've been holding a lot of tokens of Bio in the last little bit. Full disclosure, I'm a big holder and I appreciate what it has. So I've been accumulating in the past. And you guys know you voted on this deep dive. I did not, choose it. So at the end of the day, a V recovery, a rounded bottom. This looks like a nice scenario to see a breakout out of this range, which is at about 10 cents eventually. You know, in the short term, we could get a few dips and come back down to about 5.6 cents, retrace, get into a discount zone. As long as we don't break below these bottoms down here at about 4 cents, we're okay. And that's what I look at, is ultimately market structure could be painting a picture of a shift. And that's what a V recovery rounded bottom out of an EVE structure generally does. But we need a confirmed higher high. And a confirmed higher high would essentially be one of which we see the price eventually get here and bang, maybe after an exchange of hands around here, maybe we do get this cup and handle scenario happening, and then we break to the upside, and that's done. This becomes a change of character, right? It becomes a scenario where we start making higher highs and higher lows. And now if we zoom out just a little bit, you can see that bio has been coming down just a little bit. Obviously, as a new project, we do see a lot of the times this happens, new token unlocks, you know, and so on. And, you know, the sell pressure is there. And plus, you got to understand the bear market was rough on everybody. But look at the volume here at this bottom. Look at the volume here on this potential floor price that we have achieved. What are all these goons doing down here? Look at all the volume right here. And if you look at the volume profile and you look at the oscillators here, you can see that momentum is not even overbought on the daily. Volatility is definitely overbought and hanging out here. And what is it waiting for? Is it possible that the orange line is waiting for momentum to get overbought, finally getting overbought? We finally got a green expansion on the daily. We've been getting red expansions and diverging, to be honest. As you can see, this was a big one, this was a smaller one, this was even smaller. Finally, we get a bullish response with one green expansion. It's very possible that we see the volatility come down. That's totally possible. Then the bullish response, once again, we get back up. And in the meantime, this does one of these and we get overbought. When bio gets overbought, we're going to see the price expand. And we're going to see the price expand through volume gaps, imbalances in previous price action, which is this empty space right into this level, right? And empty spaces right into here. Yes, there's a bit of a volume. Yes, there's a bit of market participation here. Yes, this could be the price target. But ultimately, eventually, I expect it to break right through this. This is not even that much in comparison to what has been happening right here. This is a pressure pot ready to expand. Now, again, that sounds bullish, right? But we need to understand our invalidation. Again, the bearish thesis. If we break below 4 cents, get defensive because we could be coming down for a bigger dip than expected, right? And that's assuming that right now we continue rising in total market cap in this space, altcoin season, Bitcoin dominance, all the rest shows us that right now the market is ready to get risk on and deploy capital into assets that are speculative, into narratives that are speculative, and ultimately looking into bio because, you know, as a first mover advantage, it could attract a lot of that fresh capital that's coming into this space in the next little while. Okay, look at the trend oscillator. EMAs in the bullish control zone. EMAs are facing up, green histogram bars. We got the purple expansion after a nice class A bullish divergence to the upside. We're definitely looking pretty good at the current moment. Is it going to expand today? Maybe not. But eventually, I do expect that this bottom will eventually hold and eventually we move to the upside. But we have to be clear about the invalidation. Again, below 4 cents, we get bearish. Above the 4 cents, we DCA and accumulate and prepare for an expansion above the previous highs, which are approximately right around 10 cents. Okay, guys, prepare for that one because it does look very interesting. Guys, if I've offered you any value in this video, do the channel a massive favor, slap the like button. It does really help out with the algorithm. If you want to follow me on the socials, the links are in the description. Better yet, guys, join the Discord. The Discord is where it's at. Lots of good alpha, trade setups, fundamentals, and learning material. The best part is it's absolutely free. Take care, guys. Have a good one. And don't forget, buy the dip.